combined with the lack of the fluid circulation, it causes a loss of mental activity and a loss of physical and mental well-being. Now, if you're looking for a pretty good definition of fibromyalgia, I think this loss of mental activity and loss of physical and mental well-being, I think this is a pretty good definition. For sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of these, but the second one listed here is one by Carlson, Dr. Carlson. It was published in 2006, and it says intermittent light abutment of the cervical cord is a potent autonomic arousal. So if we break this down real quick, we find the word intermittent, right? That means that just occasionally this is happening. It's not all the time. Light meaning just barely touching, which is the word abutment means to touch. So just occasionally lightly touching the cervical cord causes a potent, not a little bit, but a potent autonomic arousal, okay? What he showed is when you lose this cervical curvature, and you lose that and you create these blocks like we talked about in the former slide, that your cervical cord is always getting this light touch that's happening, okay? And what this light touch is causing is a potent autonomic arousal. What that means is this. In a person whose autonomic nervous system is functioning correctly, the autonomic nervous system is your fight or flight mechanism, and that's always going to be going, okay? So it's going and going and going, so that if a tiger were to jump in the room, you have an automatic response, whatever that would be, to either run or punch it in the nose or whatever you're going to do, okay? So it's kind of, but in a normal situation, there's a gate there that blocks that. So it's always going, but there's a gate. So it's kind of like you're at a stoplight and you're revving your engine all the time, but you've got your brake on. So then the tiger jumps in a room, the brake automatically comes off and you're out of there, okay? When someone has this light touch always going, it's like you're always through the day, it's like someone's hitting you with a little bit of a hot poker or something on your spinal cord. With this always going, that gate that keeps your autonomic nervous system in check, that gate is not there. So in fibromyalgia, your autonomic nervous system is constantly going, or in other words, I heard Dr. Holman describe it as that the tiger is always in the room, okay? So you lay in bed at night and you try to go to sleep, but your mind won't stop. It just keeps going and going and going and going, so you can't actually get to sleep. It causes lots of anxiety. You can't stay calm and stuff because this autonomic system is always going. So the other thing that this causes, okay, that I want you to think about is that your autonomic nervous system and these nervous systems, the central nervous system, that's having this arousal and stuff, this is the system that controls every other system in the body. So you wonder why, as you've had fibromyalgia for a while, you start to become glucose intolerant, and you can't eat certain foods, and all these different things that didn't used to be allergies to you. Now you're super allergenic to all of these things. Okay, you have all these things that used to be no problem. Now you're allergic to them all, and it's because this central nervous system has got this thing so aroused that every little thing that comes to your body sees it as an allergen and has to fight against it. Now, that's kind of some of the research that kind of gets us to this point. But what I want to do is explain to you how your spine is supposed to work, okay? Because if you can understand the proper mechanisms, and then we discuss the improper mechanisms, then you're going to be able to understand how the fibromyalgia is caused from the spinal mechanics. So, I'm going to take you back to birth, all right? When a person is born, if everything goes according to plan, they should have a curvature that's developed in their thoracic spine. And I'm not sure. I got to see if I have a picture of it. I don't. Okay. So you're going to have a curvature in your thoracic spine. Then as you start to crawl, as gravity pushes down on you, you're going to develop another curvature in your lower back and another curvature in your neck, okay? So as you stand upright, like that picture I showed you earlier, you should have a curvature that goes front to back in your neck and then back to front through your thoracics and then front to back again in your lower spine. And this curvature, it has a couple different things that are so important. One is that it gives you a shock absorption, okay? It's kind of like a spring in your spine to handle gravity, all right? But the other thing it's doing is it's protecting your nervous system. You know, Gray's Anatomy defines your spine and says it has two functions. It says one is to keep you upright against gravity, and the other is to protect your nervous system. When you lose this second function, or the first function of being able to withstand gravity, and your head starts to come forward, now you've got a problem, and now it's going to start to affect your central nervous system, okay? So just kind of to think about this for a second. your head weighs between 10 and 15 pounds, okay? So if you think of the heaviest bowling ball that you've ever picked up, if you were to take that bowling ball and pick it up and you hold it so that your hand is flat, your palm's towards the ceiling, and you put that ball in there, you're going to be able to hold that ball because you've got the leverage of your wrist creating kind of a curvature there. But what if I've got my fingers in this ball and I now transfer the weight of that ball forward of my hand? How long am I going to be able to hold that? The answer is maybe a couple minutes, but definitely not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, okay? And then if you think about also, if say you're holding a bowling ball and you hold it close to you, it's going to weigh 10 pounds. What if you keep holding that ball and you extend your arm out in front of you? How much more does that ball weigh? Well, we know that your head, for every inch that your head transfers forward of your body, it adds 10 more pounds of weight that your body has to deal with compensatively. That was a study that the University of Colorado showed. Okay? So if you look at yourself or you have your spouse look at you and look at your head and where it's sitting, a lot of you will probably notice that your head is kind of sitting forward of your shoulders, that your shoulders are hunching forward because you've lost this curvature in your neck. This is another analogy. I told you I'd come back to this banana analogy, all right? So the curvature in your neck is supposed to be the same as a banana, about that same curvature. Now I want you to think about if you were to take a banana and you grab that banana on both sides, on both ends, and you straighten that banana. What's going to happen to that banana? Well, we know, if you think about that, everything on the back side of that banana is going to stretch and tear and it's going to rip, okay? Everything on the front of that banana is going to squash. So if we think about this banana, and everything on the back side of this is going to tear and rip, okay, and stretch. Well, what do we have on the back of that banana? The first thing we have are muscles. We have tendons, we have ligaments, we have all of these soft tissues. Now these soft tissues are going to be stretched and they're going to start to spasm. If they're muscles, they're going to start to cause a lot of pain and problems back there, okay, and a lot of inflammation. And because this is mechanically changed, these muscles are going to always keep firing and firing and firing. And over time they're going to fatigue and they're going to go from what they go from like prime rib to beef jerky, okay? They're so worn out that now any little thing that happens, it's going to make these muscles fire up. It's why you notice your head just feels so heavy and you have all this pain down the back of your neck and into your shoulders. And a lot of people say, well, I carry my stress in my shoulders. When actually what you're doing is you're carrying your head off of your shoulders. And so every little stress that comes along, that starts to cause a little more pain. But the real kicker here and the real important thing that you need to understand from this is that there's the other structure that gets stretched in this on the back side is your spinal cord, okay? We know from research done by a neurosurgeon named Alf Brigg that if you take a spine that's supposed to have a 45-degree curve or the normal curvature, about the curvature of a banana, and you straighten that spine just to straight up and down, so now you have a straight spine or what they call a military neck, that it causes a 28% stretch on your spinal cord, okay? That's very significant, a 28% stretch on your central nervous system as it comes through your neck. Now to put this into perspective, it takes about as much pressure as you want to put on your eyeball with your finger to cause about a 50% change in what's going on in that spinal cord, whether it's causing pain or shutting down an organ or whatever it is that spinal cord, particular part of the cord is controlling. So you can see how losing this curvature is going to cause a lot of issues and can affect a lot of things. And I'm actually going to show you here in a second a slide that shows you how much stretch is on that spinal cord and how that is going to create this dysfunction. Now, if we go back to this banana, and we think about the banana and we say, okay, everything on the backside stretches 28%. Well, what happens to everything on the front? And like we said earlier, it squashes. Well, what's on the front are all of your discs, okay? So as your neck is straightened through these whiplash events or whatever has happened, now instead of you having that shock absorber or that spring, if you will, from that curvature, now all of that force, gravity and weight of your head and everything is accumulating and it's smashing your discs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So pretty soon you start to get disc bulges, you start to get degenerative discs, you start to have all of these issues and stuff as your spine starts to degenerate. Not only that, but now your spinal cord is stretched, but now you've got bulging discs that are bulging back into that cord, and so you got this double pressure on your spinal cord. So now I'm going to move on to this slide, and I'm sorry I'm kind of all over the place. I'm trying to get as much of this in as I can tonight for you, and then we can talk about how maybe you can do the whole webinar later. So the slide says, how do we lose our normal spinal function? Okay, there's two ways that kind of group everything together. The first one is going to be repetitive trauma, and the second one is going to be acute trauma. So if we think of repetitive trauma, that's going to be things like you hang your head over your computer 8 to 10 hours a day. You work in a setting at work where you're doing the same thing over and over and over, and your head's hanging forward. You know, we see a lot of dental hygienists and stuff that have these issues because they're always hanging their head forward.